Okay, well, welcome. Welcome to the second deep dive session on contemplative practices. Last month, we talked about space. And I know some of you I see were on that first lecture, but some of you who are maybe listening online to this recorded have not yet heard the first. The first was we're really focused on noticing space and a reframing of space, space as a possibility, a commitment, and a contemplation. And I asked all of us to consider doing a few activities over the course of the past month, one of which was setting an intention, a daily intention, or maybe even a weekly intention that can open up space for possibility. The second was to look at lingering items in our lives that maybe are hanging in the back of our minds, and then committing to that and seeing what completion looks like in our minds for those items. The third is a pause. And pause showed up for us as a pause in our breath, a pause in our day, and a pause as scheduled into our calendar. So we looked at calendars and played around with a few different ways of recalendering ourselves. On November 1st, we're going to be talking about values and values alignment, how values show up in our lives, a little bit about our own personal missions, and then what happens if maybe our values don't align with those of our organizations or other people in our lives. December 6th is probably one of my favorite ones. It's on productivity, and there are hundreds of productivity tools that are out there. And we're going to look at a few of those, and then we're going to talk about what healthy productivity looks like. Again, using contemplation and meditation as a grounding. And our last session is communication in action. This particular session is going to have a lot actually in it. A lot primarily because it's the last session. So we're going to be doing a recap. And we'll also be talking about ways that we communicate with each other in speech, the types of requests and promises that we make. And then we'll be talking about how we're learning beings, how we unlearn and learn. So please do consider joining us for all of those. Now, today, we're going to be talking about contemplative practices, so focusing in on that. In the module, we define contemplative practices as any activity that has us really present in our moment, present in our bodies. And so I described it as those things that we love to do. It could be riding a bike, playing a musical instrument. Maybe it's even, going on a jog, being outside in nature, taking our shoes off, walking barefoot. And those are all fantastic ways of grounding ourselves, of practicing contemplation. For the purposes of this session, though, I really want to think about how we integrate contemplative practices into our workday, because we might not be able to pick up our flute and start playing in the middle of work, or go outside and take off our shoes and start walking, or maybe get on our bike. So what does it look like to practice at home, have some practices that then we can carry with us into the day? And when we do that, what it does is it allows us to have more focus, clarity, and concentration, but it also gives us a sense of calm when there's a lot going on in the day. So we're going to, throughout this next 45 minutes or so, maybe 50 minutes, look at how we can start and strengthen our practice. I know some of us on this call are very experienced meditation practitioners, and then there's others that maybe are coming newly to it. So we're going to try out 5 practices today, or at least talk about 5 practices. We'll try 3 of them. We'll talk about 5 of them, and then I'll share 2 tools that we can use to help capture some of our learnings from these 5 practices. But first, let me begin with a story, because I like telling stories. I am a shelter vet, and I still practice, and I do a lot of shelter work. This particular story is using photos that are not from my shelter. So there's the first disclaimer, but it still relates to sort of my experience with veterinary medicine and practice. And I have a feeling that some of you can relate to this as well. So it's a Tuesday morning, it's 6:30 in the morning, and I decide I'm going to wake up really early and get to the shelter. This happens to be a day that we run clinics at the shelter. So we have a vaccine clinic, and then we also have a spay neuter clinic. And I'm one of the vaccine clinic veterinarians. I also have to do medical rounds. So on this day, I decide to park in the back, and I come through the back. So I haven't seen the lobby. I haven't driven to the front because I really want to focus in on just being there. And I know it's really early in the morning. It's 6:30. Normally we start setting up around 7 or 7:30. So I walk in and I walk into the hallway, and this is that hallway where there's beautiful glass windows to my right, the sun's streaming in. It's a gorgeous day. In front of me, I see this dog, which you can probably see in small. Maybe you can see my mouth right there in this door with an e-collar because we had done surgery on him the day before. So I have to take a look at him, and I'm going to walk through and just have a relaxed morning. And so I'm looking at the sun, I'm looking to my right, and I turn to my right, and this is what I see. I see a long line of people waiting with their animals for me outside already at 6:30. This line is starting to form. And this area is that fence that you see right here that I think you can see my arrow in. And there's this long line of people. I can feel my palms getting sweaty because I'm now a little anxious. It's that early in the morning and everybody's already coming. And so I say to myself, you know what? I better go back to my office and start doing some work elsewhere and get myself situated for all these animals that are coming in. So I turn back around, and now I'm making sort of a 180-degree turn, and I look out one of these glass doors that's behind me. And what I see is the lobby. And the lobby has all these animals as well, as people already lining up, standing there. And I am, because those of you who saw me last time, you know that I like drawing. I am right here, back here in this window, looking through this window with my mouth open, and I'm kind of like pressed up against the window here, looking at all these people who are entering. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's a lot that I need to do. And I can feel it rising in my belly, kind of this gut feeling that's uncomfortable. I'm feeling some tension in my hands. I'm feeling sweaty. And this is a moment where I can stop. Rather than walking forward and going and seeing this dog, or going outside to start talking, or even going into the lobby, this is a moment that I can just stop and notice how these feelings are arising inside of me. And that's the first practice that I want to talk about. It's the practice of anchoring myself. So when I'm feeling adrift, when I'm feeling like I'm being drawn in multiple directions, drawn by the people up front, maybe my colleagues who are asking me to get started, these other people outside, I can turn to an anchor. And the anchor can be different for every person, but there's some anchors that a lot of people tend to use, the breath being one. It can be our body. So your fingertips, perhaps a sensation on your fingertips, or touch, the touch of your hands, maybe physical sensation of your feet on the ground. And these practices can keep us rooted and get us out of our physical, like that emotional thought process that we go into, and bring us back into right now. I really like thinking about breath as an anchor. For me, it's really a helpful way to get into the present moment. This is Katara, by the way. I throw her photo into every single one of my presentations because she's one of my dogs. And so, it's an example. It reminds me that as part of this process, thoughts are going to arise, that I may feel anxious, but that the breath is always there with me. So I would like to practice that with you right now. Just practice a very quick breath practice. And I'm going to describe the practice first before we actually do it. And it's only 2 minutes that we're actually going to spend doing it because we have multiple things we're going to look at, but it'll give you a taste of it. What I'll ask you to do is take a few deep breaths, and then let your body situate itself in being here. Allow your breath to come back to a natural rhythm. And then I'm going to ask that you count your breaths. You're going to count your exhalations, starting with the number 10 and then bringing it all the way down to 1. When you get to 1, you'll count back up to 10. For the first round, I'm going to speak over that and guide you a little bit. But then later I'll be silent. And at that point, if you notice your thoughts coming up, which they will, it's natural for our thoughts to arise, I invite you to go back to your breath and start again with the number 10. So that each time a thought arises or you're steered away and you see that you've drifted, you're going to come back to the count. So go ahead and situate yourself. You can do this. If you happen to be driving or biking or doing something else, please keep your eyes open. You can do this with your eyes open, but you're welcome to close your eyes. That's what I'm going to do right now as well. And take a few deep breaths. Settling into being here. Now, as your breaths return to a natural rhythm, begin counting the exhalations with the number 10. With each number, as you go down from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7, shed another layer, settling into your breath, letting go of your thoughts, relaxing into being here in this practice right now. As thoughts arise, return to the number 10. And I invite you to open your eyes if they're closed and return to our space together. And just notice what came up for you. If you have a piece of paper next to you or a notebook, please go ahead and jot it down. Are there a lot of thoughts, few thoughts? You're welcome to put it in the chat as well if you'd like. For those of you who have practiced a lot or often, did you find it perhaps difficult to count the exhalations rather than the inhalations? Or maybe starting at 10 rather than at 1? Or did you turn to a practice that you're more comfortable with related to the breath? There's no judgment. Here we're just noticing what showed up. Breath as an anchor has been studied in many different ways in scientific research. I do not expect you to read all this right now, but it will be in the slides that will be shared and in the recording as well. In this particular study, the study that I'm highlighting, there was a group of 9th graders that were taught a breath awareness meditation technique. Every day during school, they practiced 10 minutes of slowing down their breath, focusing in on their breath. And then in the weekends, they would do a 10-minute session in the morning and a 10-minute session in the evening. over the course of multiple weeks, what researchers found after testing their blood pressure and doing other actual medical tests on them was that the group that did the breath awareness meditation had lower resting heart rate, had lower blood pressure, was more focused and more intentional during school. There's other studies that have shown an increase in focus and concentration, but also a decrease in the risk of heart attack and strokes simply by focusing in on the breath and using it as an anchor. So my request for all of you is to consider practicing this. Practice with some form of an anchor over the course of the next 4 weeks before our next session. Choose an anchor, something that you feel really comfortable with, and then practice some form of meditation with that. Notice if you can go back to that anchor during work, in your workspace, at your home, or in the grocery store. If you can hone in on that anchor in those moments. Okay, now let's go back to my story. So, if you recall, I stopped and I was in that hallway. We have the dog in front of us. We have people lined up on the side, people in my lobby. And so what I decide to do is actually not go to any of those. I decide to go to this door right here, that little door handle right there. And the reason I'm going there is I know that there are a whole bunch of cats that I need to do surgery on as well, and that someone else has to do TNR surgery on, that need exams. Some of them are feral, but some of them are not. So I'm going to take a look at all these cats. And I open up that door, and if you noticed before, it was a strong wooden door. So, it kept all the sounds and all the smells inside. But the minute I opened up that door, there was this waft of catness that just approached me. So the smell of cats, which those of you who work with cats, I'm sure understand what that can smell like, the sound of cats meowing. And I went to go do a physical exam on this black and white cat, and my mind was really not focused. I wasn't able to really hear as I put my stethoscope in my ears, and I want to hear the heartbeat. I'm listening to all these other cats, and all these other noises are coming in, and I'm distracted. I'm unable to focus in on the heartbeat, which is really where I want my mind to be, and on the lungs of this particular cat. And so this offers us an opportunity to do a whole nother type of practice, a sensory practice, one where we hone in our skills of focusing on one particular sensation. It could be the smell of the cats. It can be the sound of them. There's other senses as well. In this case, I would not recommend taste, but for this particular one, we're thinking about sound and scent, a sense of smell. We can practice listening to everything in our space, everything that's close to us and everything that's far away as well. As we practice that in our homes, we can become more attuned to those subtle sounds that sometimes are missed. So right now, I would like to take just a brief moment to quiet ourselves. Close your eyes and listen. Listen to your breath, computer sounds, the sounds outside your window and maybe even far away. Notice if you can sense the quality of those sounds, their tone, texture. without having a story associated with them. Go ahead and open your eyes. And notice what showed up. Did you hear my 3 cats? Was that all that you heard, maybe? Did you hear the airplane? Did you hear the birds? Some of the other noises in the background? So, this is an opportunity to practice honing in on those senses. And we do this because as we practice, we gain more nuance. Again, a slide with a lot of writing. Let me tell you what it's talking about. In this particular study, the researchers took Zen Buddhist monks who have been practicing for years and years and years and had them focus in on very specific senses and tactile touch, and focusing in on the tips of their fingers. They also took novices who have not meditated and asked them to focus in on the tips of their fingers over the course of a few days. And what they found is that there are actually parts of the brain that were reconfigured because of this work. Those people who were expert meditators had sections of their brain lighting up when a researcher came in to try to distract them. They were able to stay in positive areas of their brain and still remain focused, as opposed to those who were not as experienced in practicing these sense type of meditations, honing in on the senses. And so there was an activation that happens, and actually a neural rewiring that happens in our brains when we start to practice these techniques. And that's kind of cool for me as a scientist. I think that's pretty neat that we can actually reconfigure parts of our pathways to be able to increase our focus and attention, our ability to stay and remain calm and remain attention focused and less distracted. So, as your next steps on your journey, notice which sense you feel most connected with. Perhaps it's hearing, maybe it's sight, might be sense of smell or taste. And when you connect with that, choose to practice with that. We have a few recorded meditations that can help you with this that we'll be posting and sharing at the end. Okay, let's go back to my story. So if you recall, I'm back here in this window. Can you see my pointer when I do that? Okay, yes. So I'm back here in this window. My face is pressed up against it, and there's a door right here. And at this point, I know that I actually have to go start doing some of these physical exams. So I exit this door and I walk through this long line. And I come to this person who's here with their dog, and they've been waiting since 6 a.m. And it's now 10 a.m. So just imagine that I had done a few other things. So it's now 10 a.m. And I'm now finally at the lobby. And I'm looking at this dog, and I have to listen to its heartbeat. So I put my stethoscope on and I lean down. And meanwhile, the owner is yelling at me. She's saying, I've been waiting here for 4 hours. And I was outside in the sun, and now I'm inside, and now you're finally here. And I haven't yet gotten to the place where I can get my vaccines, and I'm really getting stressed out. She's telling me that. And I myself am feeling myself tighten. My hands are getting clenched. My jaw is tightening. I'm feeling myself getting clenched along my back and my shoulders. I'm also getting concerned. I'm feeling my emotions rising. You know, my eyes are kind of welling up because I'm getting upset. I've been working hard. I've been here since 6:30. and I am feeling like I'm on the defensive. Right? And so this is a moment when you can practice a body scan. This leads me to my third practice. And this is something that many of us do in our homes when we're really relaxed. But if we get good at it, we can do it in that very moment and notice how the tension is building up in that moment when we're feeling like we're under attack, or that we're on the defensive, or that we're upset because we've been working really hard and yet it's not being recognized. So we're going to practice a body scan right now. And for this, if you're driving or biking or running, it might be a little bit more difficult. And I do encourage you to be careful with your body scan. But for those of you who are seated or lying down, wherever you are, go ahead and close your eyes. I'm going to lead you through a quick body scan. So we start with a few breaths. And here again, I encourage you to take a few deep breaths. And the reason we do that is it takes us out of our sympathetic system and gets us into our parasympathetic. Takes us out of that fight, flight, freeze mode and has us situated here. Now notice how the breath enters your nostrils. Bring it up to your eyes and lighten your eyelids, relaxing the space below your eyes. Breathing into your eyebrows and the region of your forehead between your eyebrows. Notice your cheeks and your jaw and any tension that you might be holding in your jaw. Draw the breath further in through your nose and now down your throat, relaxing the muscles of your neck. Noticing any tension you might be holding in your shoulders, your upper back. Taking a deep breath and sighing into your back, that area of your mid back and into your lower back. Shifting your weight on your pelvis, centering yourself and relaxing the muscles, even in your belly. Now notice your left thigh, your left calf, and your left foot. See if you notice any tingling, any tension. And draw that awareness all the way down to the soles of your left foot and now your right foot. Perhaps noticing your ankle on your right foot, your right calf and your right thigh. As you draw your awareness back up your leg. And now see yourself in all the areas of your muscles, your arms, your hands. Just notice where any tension might be persisting. And breathe into this area. invite you to place a smile on your face, noticing how that relaxes some of your tension, perhaps in your neck. You can return back to our session. That was a very brief body scan, something that was very quick, where we just hone into certain areas, the jaw, the neck, our back, maybe our leg. Notice what came up for you. Was there a particular area that felt more tense than other places? Maybe it was hard to get into your body, especially having this be the middle of the day with other people in a Zoom call and a meeting. Maybe it was challenging to feel parts of your body and even be present to that breath in the body. And that's perfectly fine as well. That is the experience in itself. And as you practice with this experience, it will shift for you. Sense practices and body scans are techniques that have been used in mindfulness to reduce stress and pain. There's an 8-week study that was done where people were led through a guided mindfulness meditation. What the researchers found by testing both their blood and their heart rate and blood pressure is that they had decreased cortisol responses and decreased inflammatory responses that are caused by stress, and that they were more awake. That fatigue, cloudy thinking that was happening, part of that dissipated because now they were focusing in on their body in a way that they were relaxing those areas of tension that normally they were holding so tightly, constricted. So in that moment, in that lobby, there was that opportunity for me to just take a deep breath and notice that I'm clenching my hand, my jaw, my neck, and relax that using biofeedback, neural feedback, using the breath, using my anchor. So in the next few weeks, please notice where you hold tension in your body. And as you notice where you're holding that tension, see what it takes to relax that tension when you're in the quiet of your home. And then see if you can bring that to work. If there's that same technique, that same, that's me clenching my fist or my jaw, that same noticing reaction. If there's a way that you can bring that into your daily life, into your workspace as well. So let me continue with my story. It's the end of the day now. I've gone through everything, and pretend this is me, by the way, this isn't me, but I am at my car and I'm driving home, and my thoughts are going back to that one person who had made me feel so uptight. And then it also went back to that dog with the e-collar at the back of the room that I actually never got to. And I had seen that dog and I'd really wanted to just check that incision, but because of all these other things that I had, I wasn't able to do that. So my mind was fixated on those two things. Okay, I need to put in a caveat here about this particular photo. If you're driving, you should be looking at the road. And the reason I'm stating that right now is that this is before I was driving. My thoughts are actually going in my head, and I am fixated in my mind. My daughter's about to take her driving test next week, and I know that she's listening to this. So that's actually the reason I'm stating that. So I know next week she'll be taking her driving exam. So there are many different thought practices that you can do when your mind is in your thoughts. There's those practices that actually examine the thoughts, such as rain meditation practices. Some of those were in the module itself, and some of those will be in the supplemental meditations that'll be offered here. There's other meditations that improve our focus and allow us to let go of some of those distractions. One of those is the labeling of thoughts. We're not going to practice this together today, but I'm going to tell you how to do it so that you can practice it on your own. And this is a technique that you can use when you're doing any breath meditation or any grounding meditation. As you settle into your anchor, whatever the meditation is, thoughts will arise. That is the nature of meditation and the nature of the mind. So thoughts are going to arise. As they arise, go ahead and see if you are attached to them, if you're clinging to the thought because you want to think about it even some more. In that circumstance, that's a positive thought. So label it as positive and then let it go and return back to your anchor. Notice at the same time, if there's some thoughts that you're pushing away, stories that you just don't want to think about, something that happened at work that's really upsetting you and that you actually don't want in your mind, but it's popping up in your mind. And that you can label as a negative thought. And again, just state negative in your mind and then return to your anchor. And then there's thoughts that are neutral. An example is, I need to buy celery. That's just the thought. I don't have for some people that might be positive or negative if you like celery or you don't like celery. In my case, it's just something that I'm going to do. So it's a task item that's showing up in my mind. So I'm going to just label that and say that's neutral. And then continue going back to the anchor. That's one practice. If your thoughts, however, are so intense, when driving home, if I was so upset by that particular situation, what I can do is go home and do a visualization meditation, a guided meditation that has me visualizing myself rooted, perhaps as a tree. For me, I find that to be very comforting. So thinking of myself as having the earth supporting me, and then I focus in on the details of the tree, the actual texture of the bark, maybe the scent of the tree, the smells of them. And what that does is it keeps me from thinking about this other thing. It breaks that cycle and it has me focusing in the present moment on this visualization and how it's feeling in my body. And there's many different visualizations that can be done as well. Studies with visualization and these types of meditation have shown a reduction in anxiety, depression, and pain. There is a very, very important caveat here. So while there's this particular study showing 47 people with chronic pain found that they could reduce their pain by doing an 8-week meditation program, it was in conjunction with professional assistance. So none of these practices should be considered a replacement for seeking assistance from a mental health professional. And this brings us to our next steps on our journey. Notice your thoughts. See if you're drawn to a particular visualization practice. Maybe the sun, and visualizing the sun in front of you as putting out warm rays that then warm you inside, that warm your heart, that have you feeling really positive. Or perhaps it's the ocean and it's the waves of the ocean and being on a beach. Whatever it is, see if there's a particular visualization practice you're drawn to and consider practicing that and trying it out in the next month. My final story is a change in perspective. Now, I am no longer the vet. I am now the person who's been waiting in line since 6 a.m. I came at 6 a.m. because my dog really needs a rabies certificate. It's overdue. And I know that this is a vaccine clinic that's going to have the rabies vaccine. And I'd gone to another one 2 weeks earlier and they had run out of rabies vaccines. So this is one that I really wanted to make sure I could get my dog in for. I also know that I have a meeting at 11 a.m. with my manager, and I really want this meeting to go well because I'm looking to get a promotion. So I'm standing in line from 6 a.m. and I'm seeing the vet at 11 a.m. and I'm frustrated because I've been patient this whole time. And yes, I've, waited in line And now it's 10 o'clock and I'm finally seeing the vet. And so I'm frustrated. So, what could I do in this particular situation? We've all been in this situation where we've been either waiting in line at the grocery store or somewhere else where we're feeling annoyed at the circumstance. Well, this is an opportunity to bring in a separate practice, a gratitude practice or a compassion practice. In this case, this is trickier to do, so we're not going to practice it right now and here. But if I was in this situation, this person could look around themselves and say, okay, it's sunny. Thank goodness we're not standing out in the snow. Or this happens to be a picture where all the dogs look really calm. But perhaps I have a dog that can be reactive to cats, and I might be really grateful that my dog didn't react to the cat that was in line next to me. So there's an opportunity to bring in gratitude or compassion as the form of even a loving kindness practice, a meditation practice where we're offering positive thoughts or metta or statements like, may you be happy, may you be well, to others. Or where you're wishing well to others, even within this line, if there's somebody you're seeing who's getting really frustrated, that internally you might just place out a positive wish in their direction. Compassion training is really cool from a scientific standpoint. These are gamma rays, they're different neural images. And people who have practiced compassion training over time have different positive centers light up in their brains when a negative stimulus approaches them. So that means, like, these people, for example, were meditating, and then somebody came in and had really loud noises. Had some annoying people even showing up and trying to break up that meditation. And rather than going to negative centers, which is what people who haven't practiced compassion meditation were going to, different regions of the brain, the positive areas of their brain were still lighting up. They were still able to hone into that compassion sense in their brain itself. There was a neuroplasticity that was happening again. And that happens when you consider using tools like journaling. And this is the first of two tools that I want to talk about. It's reflection that actually leads to that brain expansion. It's practicing, but then reflecting upon it in a journal. And this particular practice, these journal pages that you see here, have been created by one of my colleagues, Robin Vincent. Robin, are you here?
I am. I'm here.
Okay, Robin, can you just for about 30 seconds to a minute talk about what it's like to draw this? And then remember, give me enough time to go back and do mine as well.
Absolutely. Um, I over the years I've tried many different journaling methods or ways to capture my journaling. And I used to try to find things that were very convenient and very easy. And I they never stuck. And so one day I just kind of went the other way and I found these, they're called bullet journals, but it's really hard to see these pages, but there's dots, sort of like grid lines. And it really helped me sort of be artsy with my journals. And I found in the process that I really enjoyed the very intentional time about something about creating these weekly was very intentional for me and let me sort of express myself in ways that were beyond just writing. And so I look forward to it, which has made it stick. And I don't actually spend much time on it, despite what I tell Jyoti. She doesn't believe me, but I have a 5-year-old daughter, and on Sundays we kind of have our coloring time together. So we have about 20 to 30 minutes, and she colors, and I sort of do whatever is in my head that day. And and I kind of set it for the week. And
Right.
it has also had a sorry, one more thing. It's I'm kind of a perfectionist by nature. And one of the things that it helps me practice in addition to journaling is letting things go. So I frequently will make a mistake or mess up. And it helped me learn to just kind of move past that and accept it. Just get whatever's on the page. So that's my journaling practice.
Thank you. I love that. And the first time I saw this, I thought it would have taken hours. I know that this is not the way that I do it, but I appreciate you, Robin, in showing this and sharing it with us. What I do is actually a little bit different. I use a technical online tool, and the particular one that I use is called Day One. And some of you might be familiar with this particular tool. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what it looks like. Uh, there are many online journals. I happen to like this one. You'll see I have over 1,000 entries in it, and I've closed out the entries right now, so you can't see my entries, but I will share with you how I use it. I can create a new entry, and I have templates that are meant for different things, such as meditations. So I might have a meditation template where I'll write down that I did a 5-minute breathing technique, okay, where I was counting 10 to 1, and that I did that for 5 minutes. So I probably didn't need to write it up there. And I might just describe some of my thoughts that, I wanted to buy celery. That was my thought. So this is just an example of how you can use a template for meditation, and then you can tag it and you'll be able to reflect upon it later on. There's other ones as well that I use. So if I'm doing one for, let's say, a rain meditation, I might already have the words recognize, allow, inquiry, nourish, or nurture already placed within this template. What's really nice about using an online journal is you can see what your thoughts were in the past on that very day. And then what's also really nice about it is that there's locations, there's calendaring, and you can do audio or video. So a lot of times I don't want to sit in front of a computer and type. I might voice record or video record something. And then the last additional thing that I really like about a tool like this is I can use a text feature that Day One offers, where I can text my notes of whatever is going on in my mind directly into the journal, and it'll show up as an entry. So that's kind of a fun way to consider journaling some of your thoughts. My request for all of you then is to capture your experience. Notice what arises, however you choose. It can be a notebook, it could be an online tool. And again, we'll share all of this as well with all of you. So in closing out, I wanted to spend just a minute talking about some of the challenges when meditating to stay within the practice itself. And this is something that I've received many emails about. So that's why I'm putting it here right at the end. People have told me that they often feel very sleepy or drowsy when they want to start an actual practice. And so some of the techniques you can use is to go ahead and open your eyes. I practice opening my eyes all the time. That's the way I practice meditation, because I want to be able to be in that state when I'm actually doing other things at work. You can count your breaths, so that'll have you more focused, and you can choose another focus point as well. It could be a point that's right in front of you. It can be an image, and then you stay with that so that it keeps you more alert. If you find that you're too distracted, what you do is the opposite. You close your eyes. So you try to reduce all the sensory overload. You can go back to counting breaths, and then you can create again a visualization that engages your mind in a different way, because perhaps that's what you need at the time. Or you can do a thought practice where maybe those distractions really should be explored in a journal or in a walk or in some other way. If you find you're clinging to a lot of thoughts, as we described before, notice that that is the practice of meditation. It's noticing that thoughts occur and it's coming back. It's the practice of coming back to the anchor, coming back to labeling our thoughts as well. And then if you have a lot of anxiety or agitation, first, if it's slight, consider opening your eyes, setting your anchor on your hands, where you have one hand resting on top of the other. So you're giving yourself that comfort, that letting yourself know that everything's okay. You can consider a visualization practice, or definitely stop the practice. It might not be right for you to be doing that practice at that time. These are your next activities. I know we're getting at time, so just want to say that you can take a look at these. We'll have these in the Maddie's Pet Forum as well. And just keep in mind that the practice is the journey itself. Okay? That we're not trying to become these expert meditators that have new brain waves and all these other things. That it's just practicing, and that the act of showing up is meditation in itself. So all of you today have practiced with me, and that's part of this act of showing up. There's different ways to engage with us. We have meditations on Insight Timer now. It's an app that's online, should be free to everybody. And we've been putting them there because it's easy to access them and actually be able to find them. They're also on our website, though. I believe there's about 45 new ones that we're putting up right now. We also have live sessions, the Journey Your Own monthly meditation gatherings that you're welcome to join as well. This is brand new. That's why I have this slide. This module is now RACE approved as well. So for veterinarians, veterinary technicians, and veterinary health professionals, you now can get CE credits for joining. And please come back November 1st for the values alignment conversation. And thank you. This webinar has been recorded, and we will be able to share all of this with all of you later. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.